We were each put separately for half an hour in a dark cellar. But apart from that, there was nothing to complain about.
Tell us how you came to be arrested. This must have been very exciting for you.
We weren't looking for an adventure, and we didn't want excitement or anything. But I was walking near the border with a German girl, and apparently we unwittingly crossed the line, the old Russian border, and were standing in East German territory, both holding cameras. Margita called out to a young guard, "Can we have a photo?" And he said, "Oh yes, we'll come down and see you." And they came round, and he said, "Where shall I pose?" And then he looked at our cameras. He was very friendly, and then he said, "I'm sorry, I'm afraid you'll have to come with us, because you're on East German ground." So we went back to him to the camp.
And what happened there?
Well, we were each put separately for half an hour in a dark cellar. But apart from that, there was nothing to complain about. We had to give our names and addresses, of course. And then we were very, very well treated, and we were warm and well fed and everything.
Inside Gaza, Dr. Adam Hemway, an American, is staying put.
I don't feel like I am trapped. I feel like this is where we're meant to be.
Hemway's team, working out of a hospital near Rafah, was offered a chance to leave. But with no aid workers coming to replace them, he's choosing to continue working.
We want to be replaced by other doctors, other nurses. We need a whole healthcare system here.
The surgeon was with a group of 10 other American doctors, working with the Palestinian American Medical Association. With limited resources and under the constant threat of a full-scale military invasion, his team has found ways to save lives against all odds.
We are working with rudimentary now instruments. There is minimal medicine to work with, so we're choosing what patients now can get the minimal resources that we have. It's not sufficient to sustain the level of care that many of our patients need.
It's not Hemway's first time in a war zone. He deployed to Iraq in 2004, where he treated a helicopter pilot who'd been shot down by a rocket-propelled grenade. That pilot, Tammy Duckworth, eventually became a United States Senator.
I'm alive because of Dr. Hamawi and the doctors and health, medical folks who saved me in Iraq.
Duckworth, who credits Hemway with saving her life, is now pushing American, Israeli, and Egyptian officials to provide the group safe passage out and bring a new team of doctors in.
There's another group of doctors that are waiting to come in with fresh supplies, and so that's what needs to happen.
But she's been given no guarantees. And for Dr. Hemway, getting himself out isn't enough. He doesn't want to abandon his patients. He's also hoping someone will be there to take his place.
Our hope is that as we leave, we have another fresh team coming in.
What would your message be to Senator Duckworth?
I appreciate her help, and
Vivek Ramaswamy is a former 2024 presidential candidate. Vivek, I will save DEI and I will give you cannabis. Is that going to work?
It's one Hail Mary after another, Jesse. First he wasn't going to debate, now he's going to debate. First he wanted an open border, now he favors closing the border, kind of. First it was he's for criminalizing marijuana, then decriminalizing it. People aren't buying it. And here's why Trump is winning with black voters. Black voters want some of the same things that every voter wants, which is honesty. Remember, Joe Biden is the guy who had the gall to say condescendingly that if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Well, you know what? People have eyes. Black people and all voters alike understand what 4 years under Donald Trump was like versus 4 years under Joe Biden. They respect that honesty, and I think that's why we're seeing these unprecedented numbers from minority communities across the board going for Donald Trump, and I think that could be a landslide ahead this year if we seize on it.
Yeah, they respect the honesty, and they're just getting shellacked economically. Donald Trump, Vivek, just announcing right now he's going to hold on Thursday evening a big event in the South Bronx. What does that tell you?
It tells me that actually Republicans are finally showing up in places that we should have been for a long time. The last time a Republican for president went to the South Bronx was actually Ronald Reagan in 1980, and that made a big difference then. I think we can have a 1980, 1984 style Reagan outcome this year. And I think it's fantastic that President Trump is going to the South Bronx, not putting on theatrics like Joe Biden is doing, trying to check boxes, but authentically actually speaking to voters. America First includes all Americans. I'm talking to you tonight from Chicago. During my own campaign, I visited the south side of Chicago, Jesse. And there were more voters there who agreed with me on topics ranging from cutting off foreign aid that doesn't advance U.S. interests in places like Ukraine, all the way to sealing our own southern border. So I think these historical lines that the media has drawn, that the Democratic Party has drawn, trying to pit black against white, or man against woman, or gay against straight, or even Democrat against Republican, those are false boundaries. When you have an America First movement now, that's, I dare say, reuniting this country. And that's what Donald Trump is going to deliver.
That's invigorating to hear you say that about the South Side. Maybe, Vivek, you can join Trump in the Boogie Down next Thursday. Maybe a surprise guest.
We got to do more of it.
Have a great weekend. Absolutely. I agree. Get in there and fight for it.
Yeah.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.
Michael Cohen set to take the stand once again on Monday as we head into the home stretch of Trump's New York trial. This follows an eye-opening week of testimony in court where Trump's defense team pressed Cohen on his history of lying under oath, which our next guest says is more than enough to shred the former fixer's credibility. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett joins us now. Greg, thanks for being here. I want to start quickly with a text that was shared with Cohen by the defense, which pointed out that this phone call Cohen said he had with Trump discussing the payment was actually about something else. So Michael Cohen had texted the bodyguard for Donald Trump, "Who can I speak to about harassing calls to my cell and office?" And Keith Scheller said, "Call me." When Cohen was confronted with that reality, he didn't really know what to say, which is devastating for the prosecution's case.
Yeah, he stumbled, fumbled, and mumbled. Apparently, there was shock on the faces of the jurors. It was shown that he lied to the jurors in the courtroom about a critical conversation he swore he had with Donald Trump, payments to Stormy Daniels. The phone data and the text, for example, that you just showed proved it never happened. It was a classic gotcha moment. The call was logged at slightly over a minute long. Text show he wasn't talking to Donald Trump. He was talking to Schiller, his aide, and telling him to sick the Secret Service on a little kid who's, 14 years old. I mean, it was devastating to Bragg's case. It invites the standard jury instruction that says if you find that a witness has lied to you about one thing, you may disregard all of that witness's testimony. The judge, I think, now has to give the instruction, and without Cohen, there is no case against Donald Trump. Nobody else ties him to any of the bogus crimes alleged in the indictment.
So, Greg, I guess that begs the strategic question of whether or not defense brings their own witnesses. And I'll pull up one more exchange that happened this week, which was Trump's attorney, Blanche, with Cohen. And he asked Cohen, do you remember telling him that you had nothing to do with President Trump and Cohen and could not cooperate? Cohen said, no, sir. He's talking about Bob Costello. Bob Costello is a confidant of Donald Trump, who claims that Cohen told him he knew nothing about it. So do you think Trump's defense should bring an additional witness to tie this up, or do you leave it where it is?
I'd leave it. Costello was, for a time, Cohen's attorney. The attorney-client privilege has been waived by Cohen, which is stupid, but that's Cohen. Costello has the ability to annihilate the credibility of his former client. But look, I learned a long time ago in my first case, when you're witting, sit down, shut up, don't call any more witnesses, because you never know on cross-examination where that witness might get annihilated on cross-examination. So I frankly wouldn't do it.
Interesting. Real quick, that's what you think. What do you think the Trump team will do? Do you have any indication that this will extend into a longer defense?
Look, I have no indication, but it's a very skilled defense team. I think they would agree with me. Don't do more than you have to, because you might regret it. So I doubt they'll call Costello, but who knows? I have no inside information.
Quit while you're ahead. Greg Jarrett, you've been helping us break this case down the whole time. Appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Today, trucks carrying desperately needed aid are rolling across a newly U.S.-built pier into Gaza. U.S. military officials say the floating pier project could mean up to 150 truckloads a day will get to the besieged Palestinian territory. It is only a fraction of the 500 truckloads that used to enter Gaza before the war broke out last October. Imtiaz Tayyab has more from Israel.
Good morning. Well, Israeli tanks and warplanes are continuing to bombard parts of the southern Gaza city of Rafah as the Biden administration takes major steps to dramatically increase the amount of aid getting into the besieged Palestinian territory. These are the first truckloads of desperately needed supplies that have begun to enter Gaza from the U.S.-built floating pier. It works like this. Already screened aid is shipped from nearby Cyprus, transferred to a floating platform, and then loaded onto trucks. The trucks are eventually moved onto smaller ships that sail to this pier, where the aid is then finally taken to shore. This major intervention by President Biden was triggered by Israel's decision to sharply restrict food, water, and medical equipment from reaching the people of Gaza. Delivery has been further complicated by the actions of extremist Israeli settlers, who earlier this week set fire to these trucks carrying goods destined for Gaza. In all, 15 trucks were damaged, causing around $2 million in losses. The Israeli soldiers just stood there and watched the settlers as they carried out this attack, said Wasim Al-Jabbar, a local official. The brutal war in Gaza has so far claimed the lives of over 35,000 Palestinians, according to health officials. And it's in Gaza where around 130 hostages remain in Hamas captivity. Overnight, the Israeli military announced the remains of 3 of them, Shani Luke, Amit Bouskila, and Itzhak Galarenter, were recovered, but did not specify where in Gaza they were found. And the fighting has been intensifying across northern Gaza as Israel battles what it's calling a resurgent Hamas, and as the Israeli military calls up even more soldiers to join its offensive in the southern city of Rafah, which has triggered a mass displacement of civilians yet again. Nancy.
Imtiaz Tayyab, thank you.